All right. Thank you for joining us for another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today we have Ariana Allen. Ariana, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I was so excited to get you on the podcast. I didn't know you, but I saw you on Instagram, and then I kind of looked at some of the things that you accomplished, and I was like, I got to get her on. So that's exciting. I'm glad you came on.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to do this.
Yeah, and are you a nurse? Is that what you do for a living, or?
Yes, I've been a nurse for, almost 11 years. It'll be 11 in July.
It's awesome. My wife is a certified nurse. She's been doing it for, I don't know, 25, 30 years. And she actually works from home now. And so she does more appeals type stuff. I don't know if you know what that. I'm sure you kind
Yeah,
of know what
yeah.
that is. But she's been doing that for a long time now.
Great.
So there's that. I don't know if that's, but today you've accomplished a lot of things and we're going to get to all of those really fun, cool things. But before we do get started, let's learn a little bit about you. You've run marathons, halves, and all these things. We'll get into that here in a second. But I want to know a little bit about you, Ariana, just about your kind of journey. Just let's start from ground up. Like, why'd you start running and when?
Yeah, this is a great question. My
Thanks.
So actually, this started for me when I was in like elementary, middle school. My dad was a really big runner, had started doing, I'm from the DC area, so he ran the Marine Corps Marathon twice, and we got to go out and watch him. And I just thought that was so cool. So that spring, I was in like fifth grade. I signed up for track and then I transitioned into middle school track and then high school cross country. And at the time that I signed up for track, my dad was actually also going back to school to study law. So he was working full time and doing night school. So I really didn't get to see a whole lot of him except for in the morning when he would go run, he would take me out as well. So that was like our time to hang out together. So I loved it and I really took to it. And I loved cross country probably more than I loved track just because I liked the longer distances and getting to be out on like trails and stuff like that. And then I went to college and studied nursing and didn't really have a lot of college athletes in the nursing program. So I had an opportunity to try out for the cross country team and decided that I probably wouldn't be able to balance both of those things.
Tough one.
It is, but in looking back on it, I don't know if I super regret my decision because I think ultimately I was in a new state and I was doing a lot of other things. But after college, I knew I wanted to get back into running and having an opportunity to run the Marine Corps with my dad presented itself. And I was like, okay.
But before, were you at least running in college, just trying to stay in shape, or how did that work?
Yeah, there were a couple people in my sorority that we would go out in the morning on the weekend maybe and run the loop. Yeah, just to run and yap, but it was
But
fun.
that's the best. That's running with the community. Look, if you've listened to this podcast at all, people know that I'm a big community kind of person. And I think running with the community is key in a lot of aspects. And just like you got with some sorority people and ran with them, let's just stay in shape a little bit.
Yeah, it's so easy to do because you can literally run anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you decided to run a marathon with your dad, but what did that look like before? Did he help you train for that or give you a plan, or what'd you do to train for that?
Yeah. So let's see. The first Marine Corps I did with him, because I did two with him ultimately, but that first one, he was training back in DC and I was still living in Texas. I called him and I was like, hey, what should I do? What do you recommend? And he has a group he runs with in Maryland and he's, hey, these are what our long runs look like. And you should be probably doing this and then taper off. And I had a general idea, but I wouldn't say it was really structured. I just put together, okay, I can run 16 miles maybe on this weekend and I'll do 20 on this weekend. And actually, that first Marine Corps, I didn't even have a GPS watch. I literally mapped them up on Map My Run. And I was like, okay, I think this on the Trinity Trail, if you're familiar with the trail, I think if I make it here, that's about 10 miles out. And then I'll just turn around and come back. And that'll be 20.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
That I remember when Nike used to have a watch. And so that was the only watch, and it was Nike Run app or something like that. I think it's still around barely.
Yeah.
But they're the ones with the first watch from what I remember. So it's come a long way is all I'm saying.
Yes, very long way. And of course, now I don't even know how I did that without a watch.
Exactly. I know. I have my watch on now, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly. I have mine too.
So you run that marathon you trained, but sounds like it wasn't structured. Or was there a time where you just started to become a little bit more structured, more interested in the marathon? What happened there?
Yeah, so that first marathon, it was actually a pretty rough experience because first marathons, I think, are always going to be hard. And then, like you pointed out too, I really didn't have a lot of structure. I didn't know what I was doing. And actually, around mile 17, because my dad had been injured leading up to the race, mile 17 is like, he had some really bad sciatic pain, and I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this. He bows out, and I'm like, okay, I'm already here. It's only in my mind. I was like, it's only like, what, 8, 9 more miles. I'll just go ahead and tough it out. Yeah, and so I finished it and I was just like, that was really hard. I wonder if I like ran more, if it could be a little easier.
How did you do on that marathon?
I ran about a 4:40.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
so I was excited about it just to have finished a marathon. I had no real metric for what was good, and I hate to say that, but I had no real metric of what's considered a fast marathon, what's good. So I was just stoked that I did it and had a beer
I'm,
after.
I'm pretty excited to hear the rest of the story because I know exactly what you've run now. And at 440 is, look, it's your first marathon. It is what it is. But so I can't wait. So here we go. Let's keep
Yeah.
going. So you ran that first one and you were thinking maybe I should run more or whatever. What happened from there?
So actually, it gets a little worse before it gets better.
Happens.
So that same weekend, I ran my first marathon. My now husband proposes to me. So we started wedding planning, all the things.
What's funny is you said it got worse, and then you tell us the story of your husband. What's going on?
No, the running part gets worse. I would say yes. Okay, I hear you. Life got better.
Got it. But the running didn't.
The running did not, no, for sure. Yeah, so he proposes to me, and I was so excited. And we got married literally the very beginning of October. I had not been running really at all. Anyone who's planned a wedding, it can be really time consuming in weird ways. And we traveled because we went back to DC to do all of this. And so running didn't really happen.
A lot
And
of
then
time and effort.
yes. And then after I got married, literally the next week, my dad's, hey, I'm doing the Marine Corps again. Do you want to do it with me? And I'm like, shoot, I haven't trained at all. But I was like, yeah, sure. Why not?
World decisions. All right. So you
Choice.
do the Marine Corps, then
Uh,
you get married, but that was about a year ish. But within a year time frame, you didn't run another marathon, but the Marine Corps comes up again. Is that right? The next year. Okay. Got it. Just making sure
so
I'm following.
yeah. So literally I had 2 weeks after we got back from our honeymoon and I was like, sure, I'll go run it with you. Like, I'm sure I can muster something together and no. So
Sounds like
yeah,
a
it
bad
was
idea.
terrible idea. That one was, I think, around 5:15. It was pretty much
Perfect.
a walk run for me, and we just took it really casually. But that
It's
was
really the
my,
only way you could take that one, I would think. So
it would have
smart,
been rough. Yeah, it was pretty rough.
I'm
Oh,
sure.
very.
All right, so you're not a serious marathoner yet. You've done two, so that's good. But obviously you've got you became pretty serious.
Yeah. So I would say that was when I was like, okay, you know what? I want to train for one. I want to actually try. I want to train for a marathon and feel like I have a better idea of what I'm doing. And there's all these training plans on the internet, right? So that in a way, it was good and bad. I think sometimes, obviously now working with the coach, it's like they can be pretty generic. They don't always fit life. I decided, you know what? I'm going to register for Houston because it's closer. I'm not going to have to take a flight back to DC. I can drive to Houston from DFW. That's
Yep.
not
It's a great
astronomical.
race.
Yeah. So I was like, sure, let me give that a shot. And at that point, too, like I'd started my Instagram account thinking, let me connect with other runners. I want to find more people that are running in DFW. And I knew some people that were active and wanting to qualify for Boston. And then I was like, I wonder what that would look like. What could I do to qualify? What are the times? And so that kind of became my focus as I wanted to do that. And of course, I'd heard about it loosely growing up, especially in the Northeast. It's a big race and then it's 7 hours up the road. So that became something that I wanted to do. And I was like, Houston, let's go to Houston and give it a shot.
Let's go to Houston on your third and see if you can qualify for Boston.
Yeah. So it was a pretty big jump looking back on it. I feel like I probably skipped a few steps there.
So how'd it go? What happened?
So I can't remember the training plan. I think it was I know that McMillan puts out a few.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
so
there's
I kind of,
several.
yeah, so many that you can choose from. And so I ran more. I was probably doing about like 40 miles a week. Again, looking back, big jump. I don't know that I recommend that. I think I got very lucky that I didn't get super injured initially,
Yeah.
but I ran a 3:29 in Houston. So I was
Damn.
stoked. And
That's great. That's a
yeah,
huge jump from 440, 515 to now 329. That's great. Congrats.
It was a little, thank you. It was a little surreal. Honestly, was very surprised. I didn't, the time back then was 3:35 because they've escalated things since then. And that kind of just fueled my fire because I was like, to me, fast people qualify for Boston. And so then I was like, I want to try to do more. And
That's a really good time, by the way, at
you.
3:29. So for whoever, just whoever's listening, 3:29 is great. But she's got more in her, so that's good. By the way, I was looking at your Instagram the other day, and I saw this meal prep thing of chicken, and so I was so hungry afterwards. Good job on that. And I think
Oh,
that's
thanks.
probably key to now how you're running and fueling and all those things. We'll talk about that later, probably. So you run this 3:29, you qualify for Boston.
Yeah.
Anything in between, like kind of any lessons learned, any thoughts around how you might train for it and that kind of stuff?
You mean leading up to Houston? Yeah.
Like, yeah, we can go back to Houston. I was thinking after Houston, but we can go back to Houston and how you train. You did 40 miles a week-ish, and actually it was probably way more than you were doing before.
A
So
lot more.
yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, I think the running more helped. Looking back on it, my training wasn't great. It's such a like trial and error process, but I also wasn't working with a coach and I probably should have been. I was thinking in my mind, like, oh, I'm not serious enough for a coach. I don't know that makes sense. But going back to the meal prep thing, that was a huge thing for me leading up to Houston. Because at the time, too, I was still working as a nurse and I was working in the hospital, 12-hour shifts. And so, first little bit, I wasn't doing a lot of meal prep, I wasn't doing a lot of planning. And my hospital has McDonald's downstairs. And
It's easy. Yeah.
it's easy, or sometimes, oh, I don't have time to eat, so I guess I'm just going to skip that. Not by choice, not for any like weird reasons. It was just, it's busy. And
You're
then
busy.
yeah,
Working 12-hour shifts, you're always on. It's rare that you're not on, I'm sure, especially working at a hospital.
yeah. And then you're just like, you look up, it's 5 o'clock and it's okay. Never mind.
Exactly. So no, I get that. So during the Houston kind of training, you did about 40 miles a week. Did you meal prep for at all? Did you start thinking about that or not yet?
Yeah, so I had started meal prepping probably like halfway through because I just realized, especially with amping up my running volume by as much as I did, like I was getting hungry and I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't have anything to eat. I didn't bring anything with me, or I was going to McDonald's, and who doesn't love chicken nuggets? But after a while, it's like, I need to have stuff prepared, and then it saves you money too.
Yep.
There's
You
always
need the
that.
protein, you need the carbs, you need all the right things, especially as you ramp up your miles. That makes sense. All right. So you finish Houston, you qualify for Boston.
Yes.
What'd you do in between? Anything different? Did you get a coach then or not yet? Or what was your thinking? And no? Okay.
No. So I definitely, after that, I think I got bit by the bug and I was thinking, okay, you know what? I'm just going to really ramp this up and see how much I can do. And
Okay.
went the opposite direction. It was a lot of taking 5 steps forward, three
Couple.
back or whatever. And so I really, my next race after Houston was I actually did the Marine Corps again. So I wanted to train for that and try to go back and do my hometown race. And why not? And I really overtrained for it initially. I went really aggressive. I got this book, I still have it. It's called Beginner's Guide to Marathoning. And looking back, it has some great stuff in it, but I had picked up this plan that was, I think it peaked at around like 70 miles a week, which is
Okay.
a huge jump from like 40. And so I was like, sure, let's give this a shot. I want to see if I can really improve my running. And so I struggled with the energy. Like I just was so tired during that whole block. And I had really started training very early because I thought if I train for longer, that'll be better. Oh, yeah. I had a lot of really bad misconceptions, I think, about marathon training. And so I ended up with plantar fasciitis and had really hurt my knee. And so went into the race with very similar to my previous two, where I hadn't been able to really hit the mileage that I had thought. I think my longest run was like 17 miles because I was so hurt all the time. Yeah. So
Makes sense.
didn't go very well.
Then, so what'd you do after that?
So after that was Boston. And at that point, I think I was pretty burned out. So my first Boston also was not very good.
How many Bostons have you done?
I've done four,
Okay.
or Have I done four? I've done three. Three. So yeah, it was again trial and error. I was so excited to be in Boston though. So I think part of me was just like, okay, you know what? Like I want to have fun, but I want to see what I can do in Boston. But if your wife's done 12 of these, you know it's the first 5K is completely downhill. And I think like for newer runners to Boston, it can be like, at least for me, I didn't really went into it with this assumption of it's going to be really hard, which I think is absolutely true. But I didn't expect the first 5K to feel as easy as it did. And so I think I went out pretty hard. Looking back, I was ripping like these 7-minute miles, which was not what I was trained for. And then I paid for it and it got pretty warm towards the end of that race too. But I was honestly, my mindset was I'm happy to be here. I'm blessed to be in Boston because I was just so excited, honestly,
Yeah.
to have achieved that goal that I wasn't super focused on the time. But after that is when I was like, I need to start working with the coach because I don't feel like I'm going to be able to sustain this in the long run. So that's where I feel like a lot of things started to change. Yeah.
I want to hear that. So talk more about that. Like you decided I'm going to go with the coach, and what year, do you know, remember what year that was, or
Yeah, it was 20. I think my first Boston was in 2019. So it was like right after,
before COVID?
right before COVID. Yeah.
Before.
It's weird that we think of time that way now, too.
I've done a lot of these podcasts, and that's how people think. Oh, I started running during 2020, and I'm like, oh wow, you're a new runner. Yeah, because COVID.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, a lot
It's
of
weird.
people
It was
did
like
that.
5 years ago, too.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that long ago, but it is a long time ago. Anyways, so 2019 you did it, and you decided, hey, I'm going to do or get a coach.
Yeah.
How'd you find that coach? How did you find the coach?
So, funny story. So, we had worked on the Cowtown Marathon. They had an ambassador program, and I actually met him through that. And we had stayed in touch because his wife ended up being our realtor. Like, we got very intermingled very quickly. So, he does a lot of triathlons and he has a group in kind of the DFW, North DFW area called Run Related. And I knew a lot of his athletes just through running. And I was like, hey, would you coach me? I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. I approached him because I knew a
That
lot of,
happens a lot from
yeah,
what I hear. A lot of these coaches, they know somebody and introduce them to that person, and then they're like, hey, look, I need to be coached. So that makes sense.
yeah, for sure. And especially like a lot of other runners that I knew were working with him. So I'm like, okay,
What's his name? Just for everybody to know.
it's Tim Holly.
Okay,
So, and
cool.
he works, yeah. So it was very like helpful because initially what he did is he was like, let me see what you've been doing. Like, what's your other marathon prep looked like? And so I was a little embarrassed because I'm like, okay, guys,
It's okay.
it's okay. Hold on, asterisks. I don't know what I'm doing, but this is what I was doing. And immediately he's okay, you're running all of your training too fast. Classic mistake, I think, for a lot of people.
But you've been doing it for a while. Too
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
So you weren't running with a community group at all or anything? It was just by yourself mostly?
I was by myself a lot of the time. I did social running is in Fort Worth. So I did some running on the
Yeah.
weekends with them.
Yeah.
When we moved up to North Fort Worth, it was a little more difficult, and especially with my schedule. So I was solo for a lot of it. And especially during the week, I was by myself a lot.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It wasn't honestly what was hard is getting up to work, especially if I have to be at work around like that 30 mark. It's who wants to come run with me at 4. So
Not a lot of people.
yeah.
As you embed yourself in that community more and more, I find that there's some people that are just as focused as you. You know what I mean? And that's just as I've dived in more and talked to these people are getting up at 4, 3 o'clock. I don't know. And I'm like, no, I'll get up pretty early.
Yeah.
At 5. My wife and I get at 5, 5:15, and then on Tuesday and Wednesdays we'll run with the co-op here in Dallas. We'll leave here at 5:45, run with them, and then be home by 7.
Oh, fun.
But the point is that there's people that, as you do this long enough, eventually that will do it. But that's
Right.
pretty early.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were times on the weekends for sure, do some long runs. And we run related, they would do some longer runs on the weekends as well. So and I would do some long runs with my coach too, which was helpful because I had a lot of difficulty slowing myself down, which people hear that, they're like, oh, really? But I think a lot of people deal with that because
A lot
you're
of people.
so, yeah, and plus the numbers mean something to you as a runner. So when you see like slower times, you're like, you want to go faster.
Know this guy and listen to the podcast because I'm going to have him on a second time eventually. But his name's Jose Lopez, and he was a college athlete. He ran really fast, and now he runs pretty much all of his runs, besides he'll do races throughout the month, 5Ks, 10Ks, and eventually he'll do marathons and stuff. But really slow, 9 or 10 minute miles. Literally, he'll do a 20 miler for 10-minute miles, or I'll go run with him on Sundays. We'll do 10 miles at 10-minute pace, 9:30 at the most. But that's just how he runs. And now he'll do some races throughout the month that kind of gets some speed, and he goes, and then he'll go out and run 3-hour marathon, or he'll run under 6-minute 10K a mile. So point is, slowing down sometimes can help. He goes, he's 40 now. He goes, I'm 40 now and I'm in it for the longevity and not to kill myself. That's his philosophy and his thing. He's been doing it for a really long time because of his college. He even did it in high school and all these other things. And it's funny because I'll talk to some folks we run around the lake or whatever, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how Jose does that. He's got to be like running some speed work. I was like, no, he doesn't. Like, you can see his Strava and stuff. He doesn't do any speed work hardly. Besides, like I said, maybe he's running 5 or 10K or half marathon during the month, but that's his speed work and that's it. It's a
Yeah.
good point. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do speed work. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that he does run a lot. So he'll run 60 or 70 miles a week, a week. So generally 60. So he's under the philosophy around running a lot of miles is key. And I've heard this too from other elite runners that have been on the podcast, and you've even said it before. You probably did a little too much but one time. The more running you can do certainly will help you in a lot of ways. Anyways, get this coach. I go off on a tangent, sorry, but I think
No,
it's
no, no.
important.
Like, that's all good info too, because it's true. I think I was not a believer of that process initially. It's if you talk about running like 9:30 to 10 minutes, which is what I had started doing, and I'm like, man, if I'm doing all of this running at this pace, like, how am I going to do a marathon?
The long stuff that you have to, yeah.
So that was a different mentality for me. And so we started targeting Houston again, and it was the beginning of 2020, so right before everything blew up. But let's shoot for Houston of 2020 and see if we can let's just start with qualifying for Boston again, because at that point I hadn't re-qualified. I'd run some slower times just because I was not doing the right things. So got back up to around like 40 to 45 miles per week, which was probably where I needed to be because it was a little bit more than I've been doing, but not by much. And a lot of it was a lot slower than what I had been doing.
You probably felt a lot better too.
I did. Imagine that. I had a lot more energy. I didn't feel like I was totally gassed after every workout, which was great. So I was doing just like one speed work session a week. And then sometimes the long run would have some speed stuff in it. But yeah, so a little bit more structured. And I was running, I think, 5 days a week at that point. Yeah. And then got to Houston and it was super cold, which, the weather.
I was there, by the way, for that one.
Oh,
My wife she ran the marathon. She might have run the marathon. I was supposed to run the half. I think I don't know if it's COVID or not, but I was really sick. And I got out. That's when we didn't know really about COVID, but people started getting COVID. Anyways, I was there for that one. Keep going.
Yeah, it was looking back on it, it was so crazy because I was like, man, 2 months later, everything just completely changed. But, yeah, so I ran a 3:19 that year. So I was
Stuff works.
so stoked. And
Yeah.
Exactly. I did not think that I could go under 3:20. In my mind, I was just, okay, we'll try this approach. But I don't think I had fully bought into it until he gave me my race plan going into Houston of, okay, target this for around 1 through 15, then try to do this. And I literally just plugged it in and followed it to a T, and it worked. Typical aches and pains. It's still going to hurt, but
yeah, you ran faster than you ever have before.
Exactly.
For a marathon, of course you're going to hurt.
Yeah, and it's 26.2 miles. So
never easy doing a marathon. Like,
never easy.
I think that what happens is that we've been doing this for so long, whether it's half marathons, whatever, and we just poo-poo it a little bit and say, hey, that's just another marathon. I want to try to get better and better. What you've already done and what a lot of us have done is pretty awesome. And so I think we have to kind of look at that. There's a very select few of people, and it's hard to see it because we're around it all day, every day, that have done this and have accomplished what you're going to tell us that you've accomplished already. 3:19 is great and pretty awesome. I think we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Agreed. I don't see anything wrong with it, but I think you also have to put it in perspective to say, done some good stuff. Can you do better? Sure, you're going to do better, but let's just not say, oh, it's just another marathon. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Finishing is huge.
Yeah, yeah, finishing's good. But so 319, and you probably said, wow, this works. Pretty crazy by a lot. You PR'd by 11 minutes, 9,
Yeah.
10, whatever.
So I was thrilled. So then, and so in the mix of all these things too, I feel like I should add that I was running some half marathons as well. And so I had mentioned that I wanted to run the Cowtown half as well, which kind of a quick turnaround from Houston, but I was like, you think it's doable? He's, yeah, sure, let's take a crack at it. And I think at that point I was in like the ones range. And so I was like, do you think I can go under 90 minutes? He's, I don't know, like we could give it a shot. I might be able to do that. So that same year, I turned around and I ran Cowtown, and I think I ran like a 129.58. It was just under 90. I know. And
Like I've run that thing like 10 times and the half. And I find it one of the hardest halves within Dallas because of the hills.
yes.
So 129 is pretty awesome.
I was, again, I was just thrilled. I was on this high, I think, like we already talked about. I was not a big believer of this process initially of running slow. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. We'll try this, but I don't think it's going to work. Because I was just very, I don't know, wary of it. And then when it worked for Houston, I'm like, hey, let's try this. And that was March 1st of 2020. And then everything, of course, stopped. And my life got super busy with work because I was still in the hospital at that point. And so there was a pretty good marathon break, I think, until Boston of 21 was the next one that I did, which was that, I think that was the one that they did in October.
Was it virtual or no?
No, so I did, because let's see, I qualified again in Houston. And so I registered for the 2021 Boston. And so that was the one that they moved to October. And then,
Got it. Late. Got it. Yep.
yes, it was a weird time. So that was the next one that I did. So it was almost like a year and a half.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So did you just train and look, we're all kind of, did you get burnt out at all? Like because of COVID itself or what happened kind of during that time? A year and a half. It's a long time because there's no
Yeah.
races going on.
No races. And I would say I was pretty focused on work. I was doing some running. It was very casual. Yeah. My like mental headspace was not great. I think I did one virtual marathon. It was the Marine Corps. I did a virtual Marine Corps
Great.
marathon. I
Of
loved
course.
the race. But yeah, it was brutal. I was working between 60 and 70 hours a week.
Man, yeah. You probably just, they couldn't get enough of having more nurses.
Yeah. And I was blessed to have a job. I know a lot of people that were laid off but yeah, I was
Well,
pretty tired.
you weren't going to lack a job
No,
for what you do.
for sure.
That's positive.
Yeah. Hey, it's all you can do is look at the positives, right? But yeah, I was pretty busy. So I wasn't doing a lot of running. I was in like the 30 to 35 mile a week range. I was pretty just, and some weeks it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
It was helpful. My coach is a nurse practitioner also. So we commiserated on a lot of things and we would meet and go run sometimes just casually because I just need a break.
That's great.
Yeah, it was nice just to have somebody and then talking back and forth about stuff that was going on in our kind of respective workplaces because at that time it was so difficult to explain like outside of the healthcare world, hey, are you seeing this? Because it's really crazy. And so it was
But
super
you have some fun stories or not so fun stories.
yeah, both. It was weird. It was a really wild time. And then just going into work every day and the rules were always changing. You didn't
Always.
know. Yeah. And I'm
I
sure you're
remember my dad was in the hospital and every day some new rule. And I'm like, that wasn't yesterday. It is today. I'm like,
yeah.
okay. Oh, but yeah, I can imagine that what you're going through is all these changes all the time. Just nobody really knew what to do. That's obvious,
Yeah.
you know?
It was wild. And then I remember, gosh, this was, I think, like maybe 3 months before I ran. No, let's see, this was still 2020. Because I had texted my coach and I was like, hey, like I got a COVID exposure. Like at that point, we weren't required to wear PPE or whatever. They told us that we couldn't. And so I had an exposure to a patient that had it. And I had the patient for 4 days in a row. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it. And I'm like, should I keep running? What do I do? Like, I don't know what I should be doing. And he's like, I guess just, we don't really know. So just keep going and see how you feel.
And if something happens, we'll see.
So it was a lot of that because I was just constantly, I'm like, I don't. And then I was running, like I said, but it was very sporadic, very off and on until when they decided that Boston 21 was going to be in person. I was like so excited to be able to do that again because I think a lot of us, it was so up in the air. Are we ever going to have regular
again.
races again?
Yeah, I remember. Cool. So what did you do like for training? Did you get your coach back and say, "Hey, I'm going back to Boston," or did you just do this yourself?
No, yeah, I kept working with him. And so I told him I want to do this and I want to just run it. At the time, I was still working a lot. So I actually worked a 72-hour week leading up to Boston. So I flew out, I think, on that Saturday evening. And then, of course, I want to say it was on a Monday still in October. I don't really remember if it was Monday or Sunday, but it was literally a turn and burn. I flew in the night before, got my packet the next morning, and then ran the next day. So I just was like, I just want to do this and just be there. So I still ran pretty well. I ran like a 3:24.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And I was just excited to be back in person, and things with work were still crazy. So I didn't really have a target in mind.
Sounds pretty good though. 324, considering you haven't run a race in a year and a half and you're working 70, 80 hours a week.
Yeah. Looking
Yeah,
back on it, I'm like, how did I do that? I was also in my 20s still, so I don't know.
helps. Definitely age is a big factor, I'm sure. So it's been a long time since I've worked 80 hours.
Yeah,
So
you know what? I've never done that again. And I will not do that again. It was pretty bad.
yeah.
Not
Do you still
fun.
do the same stuff or are you doing something different?
Yeah, I'm still doing nursing like in the hospital, same unit
Okay.
actually too.
Wow. Okay. So you run Boston. Now it's all clean. COVID's going away ish. What happened then?
Yeah, I actually made the decision that year they had Boston again in April, or they had it in April of 22. And that was going to be the 50th anniversary of women being able to run. And I was like,
Gotta go.
I know. I was like, I got to go. I'm a woman, so I should be there. So,
Exactly. And you qualified. So
and I
wow.
qualified. So we went back to Boston and ran a 3:18. So small little PR. I was happy with
Nice.
that. Yeah.
Hey, in Boston. So that's pretty awesome. Got a
Yeah.
PR there.
A hard course. I feel like it's
Yeah.
very, people always talk about how the Newton Hills and all the things. It is a really challenging course to just pace yourself on too.
It's pretty fast in the beginning, from my understanding. So just trying to figure that piece out. My wife's done it 12 times and she's done pretty well most of the time. Really only three good races for her there, and then some really bad races there too. I
Yeah,
mean,
I can
it's
relate to
just
that.
Boston. Yeah, it just happens.
Yeah. And the weather in New England is so unpredictable in April. You
You
just don't
never
know.
know. It could be
Yeah.
super cold. Des Linden won it, and it could be super hot.
Yeah. Just no clue.
So you did a 320 or 318, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But now you're back at it though. You're
Yes.
back at trying to figure out how to PR or yeah, do all these PRs. What's going on now? What's the after the Boston 2022?
Yeah, so that's when I think we started talking about goal wise, because I think, again, like we talked about, it was recovering from all the like COVID stuff. And then, okay, like, where do you want to go with this? Like, let's try. And his suggestion was let's shoot for sub 3:15. So that was where I saw myself natural progression going. I'd gotten into the
It's realistic.
yeah, realistic. So I think like too, knowing my history with biting off more than I could chew, we kept things reasonable initially. And I had gotten into the New York Marathon for 22. So knowing that one also is a pretty tough course. There's lots of bridges and hills, and
A lot of
so
people on that one.
a lot of people. And 2022 was a really hot year.
Uh-huh.
Anyone that's done New York or did New York in 22, we're all traumatized. It was like 75 degrees at the start.
Oh,
The warmest day in New York history in November, and you're standing at the start line sweating buckets. And I'm like, this is not going to go well.
that attitude. Come on.
I know.
Bad attitude going in.
I think, you know what? I
I'm
was
just
like,
joking. It's pretty realistic. 75 degrees. It's got to temper your expectations a little bit.
yeah. And okay, so I was thinking, like, I think I was like, okay, you know what? I think I can still. I talked to my coach the night before. He's look, just really try to manage yourself in the beginning because PR is still possible. We done trained more than I had before. I started running closer to like 50-ish miles a week. So I still felt like I was fit. The day just it was not the best day to be given for a PR. Yeah. So I think that one I was like around 3:35, which still was not bad, all things considered.
That makes sense to me. I wouldn't be that disappointed considering it's 75 degrees out at the start and
Yeah.
hotter. Makes sense. Okay. But you get it done. It's great experience. I was there when my wife did New York, and I ran the five. I always do the 5Ks, and so we love New York. Anytime we can go, we will. And running that marathon for her was great. 5K was great for me. So
Yeah. It's a really fun race too. Lots of crowd support, and it's just, you can't really beat the environment. It
yeah,
just was fun.
it was just hot. All right, get New York and get through that. What's next?
Next was Chicago, and I was excited to do that one because it was going to be flat. So,
Yeah,
um,
a lot of times good weather too. Sometimes not, but
exactly.
it
Yeah,
just
but most of the
depends.
time it seems like it's pretty good. And so I was like, okay, like I want to try to get, that's when I'd run some halves in between then, and I was hitting around like 125, 126. And that's when I had asked my coach if he thought going under 3 hours would be realistic. And he definitely thought I could do it.
From a 318?
Yeah, honestly, I
Okay,
was at that point, I was running like 125, 126
really
half.
fast halves. Got it.
Yeah. And so I was thinking, is that somewhere where you could see me going? And he did. He said yes, but let's target under 310 first. Let's see how close we can get to the
I
30.
like that. I like your
Yeah.
coach. He's
He's a
smart.
lot more reasonable than I am. I think probably most of the
But
time.
I think that you probably have the right mindset, though. I like that.
Yeah.
But he's your coach. Say what's realistic, but keep
Right.
going. I think I saw your Chicago time. So, anyways,
Yeah. So I was excited. Let's just see how close three something. Did a lot of training. And of course, training, and if everyone that you've probably talked to will tell you the same thing. Training in Texas during the summer is brutal.
yeah, I know.
We had a pretty brutal summer that year. But I felt like I was doing pretty well in trading. He was happy with the workouts. And so went into Chicago. He's okay. I don't know if we're quite at sub 3, but I think you could get pretty close to 305. So going into Chicago, like we had perfect weather. It was like 50 degrees, 48 degrees or so at the start. What a gift. And I lined up like right between the 3 hour 305 pacer. I was ready to go, and I was pretty confident in my training, and I hit right at 306. So it was
Wow.
like 306 and change. I was really happy with that. When I,
Could you not be? Anything from that's great. That's a huge PR. And
yeah,
the potential like that you have is starting to be tapped into. It sounds like it's completely untapped. Even at 319 or 318, you get way better times to go.
yeah. Thanks.
I
I
love
was
that.
like, I think too, I didn't think initially that I could be capable of that because it just seemed like such a fast time. And I'm like, I'm not some of these elite girls that I know that are running these phenomenal times. But he was like, I'm starting to feel that way. I start to be proud of myself. But I was,
So what's funny is you should be proud, but a lot of times, like I've been running for a long time, and it's funny because you'll see these folks, men, women, whatever, that have, you can tell they have a ton of potential. So I'll give you an example. There's this one woman, we were running half marathons and we were training, and she was in the 140 group. And I knew that she was easily under a 130. But one is you have to train. That's the key at the end of the day to get there. But two is mindset. If you're training all day, every day with a 140 group, your mind is, I just want to hit a 140. You know what I mean? Or if I get lucky at 139 or something like that. It's a big mindset. And I think sometimes we get in our own minds thinking we can only do this one thing. Your goal at the end of the day was you hit it on the head, in my opinion. You said under three. You want to hit under 3 hours, but he's let's do under 310 because the realistic is, hey, the 318 to 310 is still like ridiculously good, but you still kind of met in the middle, it sounds, and you hit 306, and you're starting to hit that stride. You're one of those people that probably, I don't know, look, if you were doing the training the whole entire time, which sometimes you weren't, you might have had a better mindset going in, but it sounds like Chicago was really awesome, and I love that starting to hit your stride, and we still haven't got to your best yet. So I'm looking forward to that.
yeah, man, I was really happy with 306, and I was like, okay. Yeah, I think if we alter some things, I think we can get under 3. So
Yeah. Now he's like, yeah, let's do it. I
let's
love
do
it.
it. We'll send it. So then at the start of the year, so a girl that I know through Fort Worth, you probably know Caitlin Keene, super fast runner. She's Olympic trial qualifier, all the things. I've run with her a couple times on the Trinity Trail, and she ran in college, worked with a dietitian that she's local. She runs NutriWorks. So she was like, hey, they're looking for a sponsored athlete. She posted this thing on Instagram about it. And so I applied being like, that would be really cool because I don't know a lot about intra race nutrition. I think sometimes people are like, oh, but you're a nurse. Yeah, but I don't know anything about fueling and nutrition. You take one nutrition class, so definitely not an expert, and
Everybody
started.
thinks you're a nurse, so you know everything about
Right.
the
I'm like, no,
body.
I don't know anything.
Exactly.
I started working with Eve in January.
My wife's worked with Eve for a long time.
No way. I love
Yeah,
Eve. She's
she's
amazing.
awesome. Yeah, yeah,
She
that's pretty
does know
cool.
everything.
About that, she does. I should get on the podcast.
Yeah, no, she'd be awesome. She completely like revolutionized how I thought of things because I thought that I was eating pretty well. And there were some things that she's like, yeah, this is a good meal, but other things that we need to incorporate like better macros. And it made such a huge difference in terms of my energy and just especially with increasing training volume. The biggest difference for me was the intra race fueling because I think that was something that I really struggled with because I just didn't really know how often I should be fueling. There's so many different opinions out there of what gels to use, how often should you take it. And I was using Genucan already and the Martin's caffeinated gel. So she worked with stuff I was already using. It was like, okay, you need to
That's
eat
great.
more,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, you probably have to take 8 of those things during a race, right? A marathon.
close to it. And then I was supplementing also with I have a like drink that I was using that had some carbs in it too and electrolytes because the Genucan doesn't have salt. So just all these little things and taking salt tablets that I like had never used, but I started using them in training and it made a huge difference. Just even in my training runs, I was so surprised. And it's not just being able to like, oh, I started working with her and I ran faster. It was like it really made a difference of how I was feeling during and after the workouts.
Transform your body a little bit, and do you feel like you look a little bit different and everything else, and
Yeah,
obviously in a better way?
so yeah, that was something actually that she watched the first like few months that we tried this because she's a lot of people they start eating the appropriate like macros and they lose a little bit of weight. So we don't want you to lose weight. So that was something we were pretty careful about. But yeah, no, I felt like it transformed like a lot of just even just with cross training, like being able to gain muscle quicker and everything was just easier. I don't want to say easier, but it was a little bit
I think
just
diet is the key. Training obviously is a big part of it, but if you don't have a great diet, you're never going to hit your potential.
for sure. And so we later, I had a race, like a race plan for the year already that we had talked about Jersey City because flat fast course. This was the second year they were running it. So I was like, hey, I think I'm going to target this in April. Plus in New York, it should hopefully be cooler. So I told her that was my plan. We ran the Austin half marathon in February as a tune up slash to test out
That's this
her.
year.
It was in 2024
Okay, got it.
last year.
20 last year. Got it. All right. Let's make sure I'm on my dates.
Right. Me too.
You've done a lot.
Yeah, Austin was like a tune up of she's okay, we're going to try Austin with this is what you need to eat beforehand. This is the carb load, or we didn't quite carb load for that, but she's night before, this is what you need to eat. This is how much fluids you can have, like down to 90 fluid ounces for the day. Everything was so fine tuned. And the nutrition during the race, which obviously like it's a lot different for a half than a full, but that race went really well with her plan that she laid out for me. So we were like, okay, we're going to replicate it for Jersey City, except we're just going to make the intra race nutrition fit more of the marathon. And so Jersey City was really like the first time that I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and get under that 3 hour mark. The plan was to go out at 6:50. That didn't quite happen. I was a little faster than that.
Well,
I
that's
did
how
the
you get faster times, or vice versa.
honestly, this was my first time starting in like a seated elite type of corral, which
You felt like
retrospectively,
elite status, so you had to go out like the elites.
you know what? Like in retrospect, it was very cool, but I think
Yeah,
in some ways it made me, I was in my head a little bit. And so when everybody else is out guns blazing, which some of those people went on to run like 240s and whatever.
exactly.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, I told myself I was going to run my race. And then that first mile was my fastest mile at like 6:35,
Okay, a
way
little
over what
fast.
I was. Yeah. But it still went well. I ran a 3:02.
Oh,
Yeah, I was so excited. It was like 3:02 and a little bit of change, but the nutrition worked out really well for me.
I had to give you confidence. I'm sure you're a little disappointed to hit under 3. That's still really hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And still, it was still like a
You're
4 minute.
that close. You're very close.
Yes, very close. So then after Jersey City, I had Berlin, which Berlin was like I had gotten in and I'm ticking off world majors as I'm going. I think everybody to a degree does that a little bit,
A
but
lot of people.
yeah, fun. And both my coach and Eve are like, hey, just FYI, when you're traveling abroad, it is going to be a
A
little
little
bit
harder.
different. And so yeah, that race was fun, but and I went into it thinking like and coach was like, hey, your workouts you could still hit under 3, but it just I think
But
the
it's Berlin.
travel
It's fast,
very
potentially. So
fast,
I'm sure that's in your head too.
right?
Oh, forget about the travel. I don't care about that. Yes, I'm going in it. You're a little competitive, so.
Yeah, I'm a lot competitive. Yeah, you know what? It was a really, and here's the thing, we got perfect weather too. So I felt like really good lining up, but I also was a little wary because I hadn't been feeling super great like the last couple days. Anytime you take a 14-hour flight, it's just going to be what it's going to be. So
Yeah,
I was
you're gonna be
done,
tired.
very tired, a little bit of a time change.
Yeah, 7 hours, 8 depends, but yeah.
Yeah, it's something crazy like that. So yeah, I ran, think it was like a three. It was like 312, 313 or something in that range.
Super slow.
I know, right? I'm such a failure.
That's a
Can't
great
believe
time.
it. No, I was
I'm sure you're fine with it.
yeah, you know what? It was like my coach was like, "Look, the fitness was there. It's such a gamble when you travel." Just when it honestly after that I came back and I was like, "I don't know what I want to do. I want to try to break 3. I don't know what I want to where I want to run." Debated going back to Jersey City. And there was a girl that my husband's family all lives in like New Braunfels, and there was a girl that I had been running with there that I actually met through Instagram.
I
And
met you.
yeah, it's so amazing how that works out.
It is. That's great.
And she's amazing. And I actually had met her in person. Like we talked off and on. I met her in person in Boston of 19. Her name's Kristen. She's great. And was, I think, 6 months postpartum when she ran that race, which is just incredible. And we ran a little bit and she's like, hey, I'm going to do the McCurdy micro for breaking 3 because we had similar goals at that point. And I think it's going to be really good. She had introduced me to the idea. I went and looked into it and they were going to have intra race nutrition for us. You could set up your own bottles and it was a small field size of 200 people. So they were, yeah, so they were going to like cater to everybody. And so I was like, you know what? This might be the way to try to do it.
So tell me more about this. I've heard of them and I've
Mhm.
seen your posts about it on Facebook, but I don't know that I knew too much about it. It sounds like a very exclusive kind of thing.
Yeah. So honestly, I'd heard about it like I think maybe 2 years ago they had done like a specific to try and achieve the Olympic trial standard. And it was at the same location that they did Breaking 3. It was at that Rockland State Park I think in White Plains, New York. So it's just north of New York City.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a loop around the lake, like at White Rock Lake. And I know you've mentioned you run out there. It's similar where it's a loop. You run around the lake, and I think it's like a 2.9-ish mile loop. So you run laps, but yeah, really flat.
Okay.
And it's pretty. It's just 9 laps, though, of doing the
Yeah,
same.
same stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you know where you're at all times, so that's good.
Yeah, and actually, so I read a little bit about it, and I was like, ooh, this might be. I actually had thought that the lapping part would be really challenging. I was like, I don't know how it's gonna feel running the same 9 laps. Is this gonna be mentally stimulating enough to where I can tune out that I'm running a marathon?
Do you not tune out anyways? Or what do you do? I feel like I tune out after just focus in on the miles. Just get it done.
Yeah, and I feel like too sometimes running in these races when you're hurting, you can feed off the crowd a little bit. And even like at these races like Chicago, New York, Berlin, you're seeing all these sights
Yeah.
and so
Thousands of people and beautiful sights. That's right.
exactly, and like reading people's signs and stuff. Sometimes those are pretty funny. So I was a little nervous about that, but I was like, you know what? She said that she was going to do it, and another
Yeah,
guy
okay.
that she runs with. And so I was like, okay, I'll know people there, so let's just go do it. So I registered and we started training for that. And the training was more than I'd ever done. Plus, like at that point, skipped over this. I went back to school. So I was in grad school and doing this.
Wow.
And
This is somewhat recent too.
yeah, so oh gosh, it's been almost a month since then. But yeah, so we all coordinated on like where we were going to be staying. My husband was coming out, so he actually volunteered with McCurdy to like, yeah. So it started to get more excited about it as it got closer, obviously. And so it was interesting too, doing things that I'd never had to prep before, like bottles for grabbing. And I'm like, I've never been an elite runner where I've been able to like just pull up and grab my bottle. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but
Create the bottle and see what happens when you go past.
yeah.
It's 9 loops, so I'm sure you'll get used to it.
And they were great because they did a bunch of Zoom calls with everybody to tell you like what to
Cool.
expect, where the bottles are going to be. So I felt prepared in that sense. And of course, like having worked with Eve, I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to put in these. I know exactly what fuel I'm going to be taking and when. The only thing that was a little bit different than other races I'd done was they had forewarned us that the GPS is a little bit spotty around the lake. So you have to auto lap your watch, which I was not used to doing. And that was tricky to like gauge, like, okay, you'd see a mile marker, people would call it out and you would lap. And so I didn't really know like how fast I was running, minus like just relying on the pacer that was there and hoping, because sometimes pacers go out a little fast or they're a little slower. So I'm just
And they
relying.
don't always finish, especially at 3 hours and under. It's a chance. They're probably pretty good about it, especially at a race like this, but
Yeah.
still, never know.
And they did tell us too that the Pacers would probably be with us. They weren't told that they had to do more than they didn't have to do the whole thing. So I think our Pacer was with us for 10, 11 miles.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah. Which honestly, at first, when her name was Stephanie, she was great, but she really kept us on pace. And then when she dipped, I was like, oh no, what's going to happen? Am I going to mess this up? But I didn't. And it was great because talking about community, I was with Kristen and then Michael, who's another guy from her track club down in San Antonio. And we just stuck together and just kept like on each
Feeding off
other.
each other.
Yeah. So, we helped each other out and they had water as well as like your own bottles. And so the sense of community in this race was really great because we were all after the same thing. And so if someone grabbed a water and someone missed one, hey, do you want some of this? Like we were just all talking to each other. And even when things got tough, it was nice to have other people that you knew were shooting for that same goal. And so you're just trying to pull each other along and help each other get to that finish line. It was cool. It was great.
So what'd you do?
I ran a 2:59 flat.
Wow. Did
Yeah.
your friend run that too?
Actually, that's interesting. So she ran a 2:59, I think 11. So what
Okay.
happened, we got a little split up. We were together, I think, up through 22. I had pulled away initially because I thought I had felt good at 22. I thought, okay, I think I could try to pick this up a little bit. And then I ended up in that 640-ish range. And then Michael caught up to me. I had thought Kristen was with him. I was like, hey, where's Kristen? I don't know. She got really sick.
Wow.
I finish. So Michael jets off ahead of me. He finishes. I finished like maybe 30 seconds after him. I could see him finish and I was like, oh, good. There's the clock. I could see that it was like 2:58 and change. I got time.
Gonna make it.
So I was so excited when I saw that. And then when I finished, tear caught me because I had gave it everything I had. I was
Wow.
totally wasted. And I like plopped on the ground. And at that point, I wasn't quite sure what I had done because I had seen it 2:58 or so, like when he had crossed. And I'm thinking, okay, like I know that I'll be under 3, but I'm just not sure where it's going to fall. And I didn't care. I just under
Whatever.
I plopped down on the ground. I looked over and I still didn't see Kristen. So I was all worried. I was so worried that she was not going to get there. I didn't know what was going on because I hadn't seen her get sick. She comes over and she plops down next to me. And at that point, I didn't know what she'd done. I was like, did you do it? And yeah, I got right under 2:59.11. And so then it was just like, we just plopped down in the dirt and the mud. I didn't care. I was so excited.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it got hot towards the end. So I think she just had not felt well, but I was just so worried that it was just
Did she have to stop and go to the bathroom or?
Yes.
Because, dang.
Yeah. And I was like, man, that must
She
have
still
been
she still did it though.
no, the mental fortitude too, because I'm like, man, if I have to stop and use the restroom in the middle of a race, that's crazy.
You lose a lot of time. Sounds like she didn't really lose that much time. She was
No.
fast at it, so it's good.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Should I train for that next time? I don't know.
Wow, that is so exciting. So you hit 9, you hit your goal,
Yeah.
and there's nothing else left.
No, that's not true. There's always more.
All right, what's next? All right, seriously, congratulations. You've hit an amazing goal that not many people in general, especially women, especially even for a woman, is very difficult, but for guys too. So you're super fast, doing some awesome things. Congratulations. It's really cool. You should be proud. I would be.
No,
So what's next? What's the kind of thinking around that for the next year or so?
I know. I feel like natural progression is then you just sub 255, sub 250. I feel like the confidence that this has given me, especially like the mental barrier of 3 hours, I think, is so difficult. But that now it's maybe I could try to just like chip away at that.
You should talk to Chantel.
Yeah.
You should. She has some big lofty goals. She didn't say them on the podcast, so I won't say them. But she's got a coach as well, and she just does what the coach says. But you should get with her, and she has some very lofty goals. And I think you might think about not this or that, but knowing that, you guys like I think she hit what 259 as well, 258 or something like that.
Yeah.
CIM. You two are right there together. I don't know if you ever find her in races and beat her or she beat you and those kinds of things, but I'm sure there's some of that. Yeah.
She's incredible. Like every time I've seen her, because Sandy is part of Run Related, so I know her kind of through Sandy, and I
Okay.
remember when she won the Cowtown, and I was
Cool,
tracking her.
huh?
I was just excited to see that happen.
Yeah. Look, there's some amazing runners out in DFW, and I've had the pleasure to be able to talk to them, and even you've done some amazing things, and I can't believe keep hearing these stories that in Dallas Fort Worth people are hitting under 3 hour marathons. Yeah, and it sounds like you haven't even hit your stride yet, so that's a positive, right? You've done some cool things, but who knows? Who knows what's next?
Yeah, I'm just excited to see what happens, honestly, because I didn't think, when I initially was so tied up in my goal to qualify for Boston, I didn't think I could get here. Or I just mentally, I wasn't thinking about it. So it'll be cool to see. Just, I could think as lofty as I want, and maybe one day some of these things will happen. But for now, it's like, I'm trying not to let the lofty goals that I might think of necessarily overshadow just being excited too that it
Yeah.
happened. But
I think it's the positive is it sounds like you're still wanting to go, and that's the positive, right? Like it's not, okay, I'm not done with this. I hit under 3. Some people it's a hard goal to hit. You spend a lot of time and effort, and you've had to change the way you eat, the way you run, all these things. You've got a coach, you've got a dietitian. And if it wasn't for those two things, you probably would not even hit this potential. Who knows? Maybe, but you just got smarter along the way. And to me, that shows a lot of guts and grit and willingness to do whatever it takes. And I love that. And to me, you've only been doing this, you've been doing it for a while, but not with the dietitian, not with the coach all together. So Chantel even mentioned that she also got a dietitian. I don't know who she uses, but that helped her a ton too. I think that's a key, one
yeah.
of the keys.
I think she's also with NutriWorks. I think she works with, it's not Eve though. I want to say it's Maria.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all great.
Yeah. Not sure what's next. Is that what you're saying from a race standpoint anyways, or?
So I know for sure I want to register for Boston in 26. So I really want to go back and just see what I can do there. I think it can be a really fast course if you run it properly, which I haven't always done. And I don't know, I'm just excited. And I think I'm excited to see, just everyone talks about their seating in Boston. I feel like the different like bib colors that you get. Ever since I've seen like those red bibs and the really fast people get the red bibs, I'm like, maybe a 259 will get me a red one. I don't know.
Maybe. You should. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you don't do, and I know we've gone over, but it sounds like you don't do a ton of marathons every year, which is to me good. I talked to this guy, super fast, really awesome runner, but he was telling me his first time to do marathons, he did 6 or 7 in one year. I was like, dude, that's like the dumbest thing I think you can do. Because I know.
Yeah. I think I can understand like you get bit by the bug.
Same.
But when I look at like the last year, like not calendar year, but just last rolling year, I did Jersey City, Berlin, and then McCurdy. Not to
Three's
say
a
that
lot.
at 3 in the span of a rolling year, I'm like, I know, and I told my coach, actually, we had this conversation a couple days ago. I was like, I think for the summer, I want to focus on like short, fast stuff maybe, and just take a little bit of a break from running 65 miles a week and doing that. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's funny is I was talking to, so I had this, I don't know if you listened to it, but these 6 people on the podcast, and these 6 people are all trying to hit under 2 hours and 40 minutes, either in Boston or London, mostly Boston. And these people are running 80 to 120 miles a week. And I'm like, how do you do that? I don't even know what that looks like. We do 2-a-days, and I'm like, but that Jennifer Pope said, look, if I can get in the miles, 80, I can make it happen. I can potentially hit the goal of whatever it is, under 240 or something. And so, look, I believe miles are the key. And there is something with that. Obviously, those guys are doing it. But look, most people have full-time jobs. Maybe they have kids and families, whatever. It's got to be realistic. 40 miles is probably not enough if you really want to do really well in Boston. but it's doable. Like you said, you can do it, but it's not going to get your full potential. So certainly the more miles, probably the better, but that's, like you said, a structured training plan, something that you're not always running your fastest, even there in the long runs. Diet, I think I feel like that has more that's probably 80%, 70% of, if you can get that right, of course the training is important, you got to do it, but the diet is also big. That's what I heard from you
Yeah.
today.
Oh, yeah. It's been life changing. And like you said, the miles are so important too. Getting up there over 60 miles really a week, yeah, that made a huge difference. I was able to do 306 on about 45, 50, but I think as you saw, it's like running more, especially most of that was easy. Or, well,
Yeah.
easy. I was running
Ish.
like, yeah, I was running probably 2 minutes to 3 minutes slower than marathon pace.
Yeah, Ariana, this has been great.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate this time. And it's funny is I don't usually go this far over. So we had a lot to talk about. It was
Sorry, I
great.
talk a lot. I'm Italian, so I'm a yapper.
I had a lot of questions, so you answered them all. But thank you everyone for tuning in to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel. Don't forget to rate and review us. Also, we are on Substack. Make sure to look at all of that kind of stuff on Instagram, Facebook. We have lots of channels that you can follow us on. So, Ariana, thank you so much
Thanks
for
so much
coming
for
on.
having me. I appreciate it.
All right.